Hey everybody, it's Josh. What is the sin that we all struggle with? It stems from the original sin, and that is selfishness and pride. We look at what Adam and Eve were given in the Garden of Eden. They were given paradise. If someone ever asks you, why doesn't God make a world with no suffering that is perfect, basically heaven on earth? Tell them he already did. He already gave us this perfect world. He already gave us everything we could possibly desire. Except it was not enough. With free will comes pride, comes the feeling that even if we think low of ourselves, we could do better than God. This is not something that I don't struggle with. I struggle with selfishness and pride all the time. Everyone I know struggles with selfishness and pride. Some people aren't aware of it. For me, at times, I become unaware of my own. It is something that devours us, that rips us away from God, which is why it is so hard when we are seeking God to genuinely go out there and open our heart and our soul to Him, because we are still clinging to self. Selfishness thrives in those who have low self-esteem or high self-esteem. It's not just the openly prideful people. When we have low self-esteem, we are dying in our own selfishness. When we have high self-esteem, we are on top of the world thinking we're better than everyone. But even with both, we still have this feeling like we are better. Like it's all about us. Or we are worse, but it's still all about us. It's a double-edged sword. And again, it's not something that is easily conquered. Jesus tells us over and over again in all the Gospels that we must die to ourselves, die before we die and be born again. What does that mean? Dying to self. Before I understood it, I kind of thought it was similar to the Buddhist type understanding of the ego death. Buddhists have this transcendental meditation they escape into, and they are supposed to divorce themselves from self. Which, again, it is something that it's not the least unhealthy thing we can do. In fact, it probably has many benefits, at least short-term benefits. But it is not the same as dying to yourself in Christianity, what Christ calls us to do. When Buddhists go through this self-ego death, they are going through this in search of self. So they are being what they consider selfless in order to gain more of a sense of self. Buddhism is kind of a unique thing because it's an agnostic religion. But really, it's a self-worshiping religion. Now, again, I'm not saying the fruits of Buddhism are bad. Many Buddhists are very, very good people, and they have great intentions, and it does help to a certain extent. Absolutely, being a Buddhist over being an atheist or even something like a Muslim or anything like that is so much better, because at least you're on the right track. You must die to yourself. But dying to yourself for a selfish reason, that is oxymoronic. That is definitely not something you should strive for. It is doing the right thing for the wrong reason, and it will not produce the results that you want, at least long term. Now, short term, everything is possible in almost any situation. Short term, you will see fruits of kind of manipulations from the devil. If, I understand that if you're not a Christian, you don't believe in the devil and demons, but it is a manipulation from the darker side of yourself, at least. You have to understand that. We see over and over people I respect, like Jordan Peterson. He says you must be selfish. You must first consider your selfish needs, and then you are able to help everyone else. I heard someone interviewing Cliff and Stuart Connectley, the great pastors, and they were talking about tithing and charity. And they were asking them, isn't it better if I just build this wealth, that I'm able to give more to charity instead of giving over time? And look, I understand, because as somebody who doesn't have money, you have to have at least enough money to survive, to pay your bills and everything, and then you can start thinking more about charity. But if you're already pretty well off, you should be giving. Those are blessings in your life. You should not be married to that money, saying, I'm just going to grow it and then I'm going to give it. The fact that that's going to happen, or most likely that's not going to happen the way that you think it's going to happen, the way that you have it played out in your mind. I'm going to get richer and richer, then I'll just give tons of money to people. Most likely you'll end up giving less or none at all, because you will have a love affair with that money. Money is what consumes your thoughts, and it becomes your God. It's the thing that Jesus Christ warns against the most, is greed. Now, lust is pretty far up there, but these two things go hand in hand. A lot of times we are greedy. We want to get rich so we can pull in the men or women and have those little meaningless hookups, right? But in our mind, it's going to be, I'm going to be rich, and then I'll have a good woman who will want me, and she's going to be great, and it's going to be perfect, and I'll be able to give to charity, or whatever you tell yourself is going to happen. That is divorced from reality. I believe it was the Gospel of Matthew, they were all giving tithes, and there was a widow, a poor woman, who gave 2 coins. It'd be like 2 cents. And Jesus Christ stopped and said that this woman gave more than anyone else, because this woman had nothing, and these 2 coins were a huge part of her total net worth. That was more of a show and act of love and selflessness than anyone else there. That is what it's about. If you are not struggling to pay every single bill, go and find a worthy charity. Go and find someone you can help. I'm looking into, I've been blessed to not be below the poverty line, at least anymore. And my wife and I have been looking for, maybe giving to St. Jude or some children's hospital, Sacred Heart. These people think about what they're going through compared to what you're going through. I'm not saying it's definitely worse. You could have it worse than they do. If that's the case, if you need the money, then definitely hold on to that money. I'm not saying to go into all kinds of debt, giving money away you don't have. I'm saying to be generous, be selfless, be charitable. I had a beautiful sister in Christ who I gave kind of a criticism of why I'm not a big fan of the King James Version of the Bible. And I was reading 1 Corinthians 13. And 1 Corinthians 13 says, it's the one, if you have all the faith in the world, enough to move mountains, and you have no love, it means nothing. And that, they said, if you have all the faith in the world, enough to move mountains, and you have no charity. They replaced the love with charity. And she pointed out to me that, yes, charity in that definition, in that context, is the same as love. I understand, and that definitely is true to a certain extent, but in our modern understanding, and even really, excuse me, in the fuller sense, listen, agape love, which is the love that God shows us, is only expressed through love, but people think love as an emotional thing. People think of love as a lustful thing. People think of love in all kinds of different ways. The ancient Greeks had 8 different names for love. 8 different names. That's why they had the selfless, sacrificial love, which was called agape love. That is what we must fill our hearts with. And listen, I am not judging you. Don't think, please, that I am ever judging you. I am absolutely too selfish and too prideful. It is something that I need to work on, because when I am thinking about my life, when I'm thinking about how to better the life for me and my family, it is selfishness. It's one reason why I really want to, in the live streams, start opening up to other people to talk, because listen, I understand, and I'm blessed that you all come on there to hear me, but there's only so much I can say about myself. I know my experiences are a lot of the reason why God drew me to do this YouTube, but I want to help others. Yes, I have to use my experience. We all have to be selfish to a certain extent, in the fact that we live in our own body. We only have our own experiences. But that is why we are called to die to ourselves. So our experiences, they are the basis, the foundation of our faith. But God opens up, He expands our mind. I'm telling you, there's wisdom that I never learned that Jesus Christ gave to me. God instilled so much in my mind, so much of understanding, not to just go and be selfish with it. He gives it to me to go and to help others. I hear or I see or I read about people who are struggling in the same ways that I struggled, and I feel a calling to help these people if I can. We all must be led around by that love. I'm not saying it's something you can just wish away or even pray away. You must open yourself completely to God. Only God can make this change for you, but you can strive to be more like that. You can strive to be more Christ-like. And in striving to be Christ-like, even if it isn't for a selfish reason at first, at least you are working towards that goal. You are saying, I want your love, God. I want your grace. I want you to I can't do this on my own. I want you to help me, guide me, show me the way. Because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the light of the world. Without him, we are lost in our darkness, and again, we're only thinking about self, even when we are loving others and we think we are selfless, we think we are being charitable, we are doing it for our own self-gratification, for our own gain, for our own pleasure. All right, everybody, I'm going to cut it short today. 15 minutes is short for me. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you soon.